Okay, this might be the season you don't want to talk about money, but it might be a really good idea over the holidays when you are together with family, discussing money, discussing financial plans for the future. And these can be difficult conversations, but Michael Masserant from the Retirement Education Foundation is here to help us make it easier. First, let's talk about why is it so important that family members, so let's just say you got a brother and sister, Joni and Chachi. Why do they need to sit down with their parents and discuss this stuff? They're elderly parents.
Yeah, so having these conversations, again, not fun. People are breaking up the eggnog. Derek's got the eggnog, obviously, somewhere around here.
He's drinking it already, I think.
And so people are drinking the eggnog, and the family's all around. And having these conversations are not always fun, but they're really important. There's about $28 billion of financial elder fraud abuse. That's $28 billion with the B.
Wow.
And a lot of that is done by adult children or their partners. And so having the whole family on the same page about mom and dad's finances are really important.
What does that mean, financial elder abuse? Somebody is taking what isn't theirs?
Yeah, so they're taking wealth from mom and dad, or they're paying themselves to be, you know, it could start small. It could start as I'm taking care of mom and dad, so I'm gonna pay myself a small salary, then a little more, then a little more, and then all of a sudden they're stealing from mom and dad, or maybe their partners are. It can get really ugly really quickly.
Okay. So you sit down. First of all, you got to stage this the right way. You got to say, look, I want to have a serious talk. Let's carve out an hour.
For sure.
Right? And you go to a quiet place with a notepad and get ready to talk.
And really trying to prepare people ahead of time. This is not something to spring on the family members. Prepare people before the holidays, before we get together. Hey, we want to talk about this, this, and this. Let's when the kids are all in bed, let's sit down and talk about these things.
Okay, so, go ahead.
And the big three really are retirement, long-term care planning, and estate planning.
Okay, so retirement, what do those questions look like?
If mom and dad are getting ready to retire or they're retired already, just check in. How are things going? What's your plan? Where's your income going to come from? And making sure that they have the resources to maintain that same lifestyle they want in retirement.
Now, are you supposed to be asking what does your portfolio look like?
So every family's different with what they will or will not share, and especially the older generations are a little more close to the vest with this information. But trying to explain to them for all these different topics, listen, we are not asking to judge or because we're trying to be nosy. We care about you, and we want to make sure that you're taken care of properly. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And that's the same thing with long-term care planning.
How does that work? First of all, long-term care planning, meaning what happens to you when you need help with your life, right?
Are we going to bring someone into the home and take care of mom and dad if they need help? Are they going to a facility? If so, which facility? How much might that cost? Where are the resources going to come from? These are really important questions that if there's no game plan and mom and dad get sick, knock on wood, God forbid, and now the kids are scrambling to try to figure out what's the game plan, that's time and resources and money that mom and dad may not have prepared for, and it might delay them getting the care they need.
And is there a blueprint for these questions, Michael, on your website, or do we find a script to sort of follow?
So we can put something online on our website, but there really are about 5 or 6 main questions that people should be asking in terms of where are the resources coming from, who's chipping in, are we doing the caretaking ourselves, or are we going to hire an outside caretaking service? These are the main things to understand, so that if mom and dad do get sick, there's a game plan.
When someone goes into assisted living, who pays for that?
So Medicare does not pay for that. That's one big misunderstanding. People assume, well, they have health insurance, they have Medicare. Those things do not cover long-term care planning. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that someone has an idea of where are those resources coming from.
So somebody's paying out of pocket.
Correct.
For assisted living.
Correct.
And what if somebody has no money?
So that's where they may be on Medicaid, and that's even more important to plan for. Medicaid planning can be really tricky with look-backs on assets and everything, so making sure that there's a game plan for Medicaid planning is just as important. And really that takes us into the estate planning portion of making sure that someone has a medical power of attorney and financial power of attorney. These are really important discussions where if someone is, knock on wood, God forbid, they're in a coma, and all of a sudden one of the children are getting a phone call, and the doctor says, you're the medical power of attorney, you have to make the call. If they're not prepared for that, that's a horrible phone call to receive, and so these things need to be talked about before these things happen.
And what if you don't assign a medical or financial power? But those are two different assignments, right?
Yeah, those are two different assignments. So then doctors are trying to contact next of kin, and now there's probate courts involved. It can get really ugly. So having these documents prepared ahead of time are really important.
Okay. So there's the homework for the holidays. You got retirement, long-term care, estate planning. and financial power of attorney and medical power of attorney.
Yes, and again, not fun things, but having these things put in place will save the family tons of grief and heartache if something were to happen.
Yeah, it's so important. Difficult conversations, but necessary.
For sure.
All right, Michael, tell everybody your website.
refedu.org.
Lots of good resources there, too. All right, thank you, as always.
Of course.